thank you all for coming. I really am very grateful that you're here today, especially on a hot day, for those of you that traveled. My name is Deborah Baklich, and my information was on your chair as well as Dr. David Ajibade.
Very good.
I'm a certified senior advisor and dementia practitioner, and I work with seniors, navigating them through all care options, all care needs. I can be a one-stop resource, and Brightview is one of my partner facilities that I work with. If clients want to tour, look at Brightview communities, I work with them. And Deb Hanley is with Brightview. If you'd like to introduce yourself, Deb, real quick.
All right, of course. I'm Deborah Hanley. I am the Community Outreach Director for Brightview Senior Living. I spend lots of wonderful time here at Brightview Mays Chapel, but I also go around to the different Brightviews in Baltimore County and Harford County. So if you have any questions about Brightview or about senior living in general, I'm happy to help and happy to answer any questions you have. And thank you all for coming. Just a couple of quick things. Bathrooms are right there. So as you go out this door, the bathrooms are right next to this room. And there's water and coffee. There's a little station right out there. You can all help yourselves.
Okay, thank you. So Deborah and I were at an event one day, and Dr. David was presenting. We looked at each other and said, we need to get this message out there because we really feel that it's valuable. So, which is why we are partnering, Senior Care Lifestyles is partnering with Brightview at the various Brightview communities, offering this to residents as well as the general, community population, because we feel that this is something that you're not finding out about. And dementia is very serious. And Dr. David Ajibaji is visiting us from Nigeria, where he is a well-known research doctor in a country that doesn't have access to the medicines that we do here. So there's alternative things that he's doing to fight different dementias like Parkinson, and he's going to go through all of that. But once again, I want to thank you all for coming. I'm going to turn it over to him, so we really respect your time. And at the end, feel free to ask questions, or even throughout the presentation, as long as we keep it going. We want to really keep everybody here for the hour. And thank you again for coming, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. David.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon. How we doing? How we doing? Great. Good. Well, thanks for making it. Thank you so much, Deb. I call them two Debs, two wonderful Debs. And they've been really nice. So as they said, we'll be talking about brain health and dementia. But things that are really louder. Okay.
We're going to move some people up front.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
No,
Come on, I'll help you.
because I tend to taper up after a while. So if you can't hear me, please come forward.
I have a mic. Do you need a microphone?
Sure, why not?
You sure? Okay, you can pretend like you're a movie star or whatever.
Okay. Yes. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I realize we have to raise our voices.
They're coming up.
You're used to my loud mouth that projects.
You project.
But I'm too loud. When I get home, I can't turn it off. My son's like, hey, I'm screaming.
No, it's on tape. We have papers on every chair. Here we go. All right.
There we go. A little closer so you can hear.
We'll start shortly, folks. You need to charge. Okay. Well, I'll just keep going, and hopefully you can hear me all right at this
It
point.
needs batteries, but we're gonna get batteries for the microphone.
Well, I wish I could project the way she does.
She's had a lot.
Anybody call you loud mouth? No, just kidding. Just kidding. Okay, so we are going to be talking about not just dementia, but brain health, memory loss, and the things that pertain to you, especially if you're over 50, and I'm assuming almost everybody here is over 50, right? Okay, I think so. So let's talk about that. Let me ask you a question. How many of you have been told by your doctor that there is no way to prevent dementia or Alzheimer's disease? Has anybody been told that?
I never asked.
I'm sorry?
I never asked.
You never asked, okay. Okay, how about this? Does anybody know if there's a cure, or your doctor has told you there's a cure for dementia? Okay.
Pretty much no.
I'm sorry?
Pretty much no.
Pretty much no. And they're pretty much correct too. In terms, if we're talking about a medical treatment that's approved by the FDA, there really isn't any. But what's so shocking is that there's no treatment for memory loss. And you would think that at this point in time, with the explosion in knowledge, AI and technology and everything, at least memory should be something that we should have gotten a handle on, right?
Yes.
But unfortunately, there isn't any medication that can treat memory loss. But we have found out over a period of time, and I'm going to tell you my story in a minute, that we have found out over a period of time that there are things you can do to strengthen and support and improve the function of your brain. There's a lot actually. So I'm just going to give you a quick background about myself. And obviously, Deborah mentioned it, I'm from Nigeria. And I have a foundation and a clinic. So I have two hats. Years ago, over 10 years ago, I decided that we're going to have a separate day of the week to cater to families from very low income areas who had kids with severe brain disorders. A lot of these things happened at the time of birth. If you know anything about third world countries, we don't really have very good healthcare. So poorer communities, mothers from poor communities, don't even go to the hospital to get treatment when they're giving birth. They don't have antenatal care. So most of them give birth at home or in churches or at mosques. And of course, a lot of things go wrong, can go wrong, a lot of things do go wrong. So we had a lot of kids with severe brain damage. And it was my job to figure out how to treat these kids. Because at that time, there was nothing available. So many times, what I would do, and okay, I have this up here to show these were the limitations. There was no way we could test. We couldn't send them by MRI scans. We couldn't do lab tests. How's my voice so far? Are you all hearing okay?
No.
It can be louder. Okay.
We're looking for batteries for the microphone.
I'll try.
Hold tight.
Okay, I'll try. We couldn't do blood tests. There were no approved protocols, so we were in the hole. We hadn't figured it out from the ground up. And the other thing was that we had to make it so that these people got results quickly, otherwise they would not come back. So we had to get results within 1 or 2 weeks max for these kids with brain damage. Otherwise they wouldn't come back. And we wanted them to come back. We needed them to come back, otherwise we would not understand how to treat these conditions. It had to be simple and it has to be safe. That's the most important thing. It had to be safe because we were dealing with kids' brains that were already damaged and already very, very fragile. And so those were the huge hurdles ahead of us. Somehow we figured it out, but a lot of that happened because I had access to the United States. So anytime I heard about an invention or a doctor or a researcher who was doing something significant in the brain health space that met those conditions I just stated, I would hop on a plane, fly to the US, I'll fly all over the US, just looking for these people. I would sit down at their feet and they would teach me what they had. Some of them would give me their medications or their supplements free of charge. I'll take them back home and I'll use them on these kids. And lo and behold, they would work. Sometimes they worked so much better than what the initial inventor themselves planned for it to work. In fact, when I would tell them stories, they would be in shock. They would like, never heard of that before. So along the way, bottom line is that I figured out how to treat brain disorders of every kind, because eventually adults started coming to us with things like strokes, Parkinson's disease, dementia, and so on. Just want to say this real quick. I love this country. This country, everything I know and can do now is because of the access that I've had to wonderful people in this country. They've given up their time and their finances to help me because they saw what we were doing back home. So it doesn't matter who's in the White House. I think this country is great because of the people.
Hear, hear.
Thank you. I really do. And my next door neighbor is he's what do you call it? The Ravens fan. And he has season tickets, and he takes me along with him. to the Ravens games. First time ever. And sometimes I tear up when we're singing the national anthem because it's just.
I do too.
You do too? Are you a Ravens fan too? Are you a Ravens fan?
Yeah.
You are? All right. I haven't been to the Orioles Stadium yet, so if anybody has season tickets, you know what to do. Just kidding. All right, so I just want to give a quick story. Our first patient was a kid, and we're getting to dementia, all right? So I just want to lay the foundation. First patient we had was a kid with she had insulin-dependent diabetes at 2 years of age. The nurse made a huge mistake and gave her 100 times the dose of insulin. Yes. Fried her brain. And when she came to the clinic, she was like this, I mean, stiff as a board and hyperextended, in severe pain, crying all the time. And so at that time, honestly, I didn't know what to do. So I knew omega-3 fatty acids would help. So we gave her a bottle free of charge. And I just said, take 1 teaspoonful 3 times a day. That's all I could do. Well, she came back in 2 weeks and the word that comes out of her mouth was, this is magic. And the kid, you could tell that she was much more relaxed, not fully. That hyperextension was almost gone. She was much more relaxed. She was smiling a lot more. So that was one of the things that really sparked my interest. And I was like, this is possible. That's all we needed to know. This is possible. We had been taught in medical school and in training throughout our decades of training was that this was not possible. But we found out right in front of us that it was possible. And we repeated those results over and over and over again over the past 10 years. We treated thousands of kids. We still have every Friday, we still treat patients around the country free of charge. And they come from around the country to see us. So it's been a really, really satisfactory journey. We won several awards for that. I'm not going to dwell too much on that. My mission today really is to help you have more clarity about what you need to do to take care of your brain. And it is never too late to start. Doesn't matter how far gone or how wonderful your brain is now. Trust me, you need to do something about your brain. I feel every medical professional, whether pediatrician or pathologist, should know something about dementia because it is taking over the world. It's #1 in the UK, it's #2 in Australia, it's #1 in Australia among women. And by the way, women have it twice as bad as men. You do know that, right? Okay, and Baltimore is #1 in the nation for dementia. I know people always shocked when I say this. I'm like, what? You didn't know that? How cool is that? No, it's not cool at all, right? But it's the truth. I mean, there might be several reasons for that, but that is what we're dealing with. And what we're dealing with is, we're talking about, it's not just a psychological thing. I mean, if mama or grandma is acting funny, it's not just that she's acting funny. There's a biological reason. The brain has shrunk. Where by the time you have full-blown dementia, the brain has shrunk by at least 30%. That is a lot of brain tissue, a lot of computing power. So we want to know what to do to avoid that. And just as a quick warning, I am going to be saying things that probably your doctor hasn't told you and probably might annoy some of you. Trust me, it happens to me all the time. So I just want to get ahead of this, all right? Just let you know that this is coming from a good heart. I love you all. I'm coming from a good, I don't mean to upset, but I'm just telling you what we have found. And now research is now beginning to catch up. And they're showing that many of the things I'm going to be talking to you about are actual facts. The problem with research is that it takes many years to catch up with actual clinical practice. And some of you don't have many years, right? So please take attention, pay attention to what we're talking about. All right, so I already said some bad news. Hopefully we get to the good news. But it is increasing. Dementia is increasing, and since the pandemic, the uptick has been even greater. COVID-19 has stirred the hornet's nest. Stirred the hornet's nest. Okay, that's it. Nest. Anyway, it's only gonna get worse, guys. So it's very important that we take care of ourselves, take care of this. Obviously, African Americans is going to be worse than the whites, and I may explain that later as we go along. All right, so what is dementia? basic things. I've done classes where I've spoken for about an hour, and then after the hour, after the presentation, they walk up to me and say, okay, so what is dementia? or what is Alzheimer's disease? Or what's the difference between the two? So let me get ahead of that and tell you right now. So basically, it's anything that has to do with memory, obviously, but thinking, sometimes moods, sometimes behavior is affected. But memory for the most part. But you don't have to have memory loss to have dementia. Some people have full-blown dementia and their memory is intact. It may have to do with their mood or their ability to calculate or plan ahead or their ability to navigate and find their way home. All right, so it's a combination of things. Alzheimer's disease right here is the most common. That's what we all hear about. It's about 70%, some say as much as 80% of all dementias. There are about over 100 different kinds of dementia. So Alzheimer's disease is just one of them. And don't call it Alzheimer's dementia, it's Alzheimer's disease. I mean, I'm just a little picky about that, but that's what we have to do. So there are some dementias that are combined with Parkinson's disease. Here's a list of the different things that you can see in somebody with dementia. All right? I have a nice picture here drawn by my good friend ChatGPT. And so let's talk about Alzheimer's disease. We know what dementia is. Let's talk about what Alzheimer's disease is. It's a unique disease that is different from every other kind. In fact, they've not been able to reproduce it in mouse models yet. Okay? Alzheimer's disease, if you want to know the true definition, is the brain saying enough and shutting itself down. Okay? Is the brain going into hibernation? It's almost like there's a suicide switch that has been switched on or flipped on as a result of several factors which we'll be talking about. Initially, it's as a result of damage, continuous damage over decades. But at a certain point, some say critical mass, at a certain point, the brain now says enough and starts shutting down, like I've said, because of the damage that has happened. That damage could be several factors, including the medications, some medications that you take to address the problem in the first place. Okay, so well, let's get with it. So I had them draw this picture for me. So basically, it's as a result of, that's the brain in the center, a series of damaging factors which are in red and not enough protection. Okay, I'm seeing some frowns here. We're talking about decades of attacks on the brain, and everybody has attack. Everybody's brain is under siege. I promise you. Everybody, if you're breathing and living, your brain is under siege. Thank you. All right, help is here. Is there any difference? Is this on? That doesn't sound like it's on. Is it on?
It should be.
Is it on? No? Yes?
Is it on microphone over there?
It is.
Then there's something wrong. Let me see. Keep going.
Okay. All right, keep going, she says. I'll keep going.
Test.
Oh, I think you give on this now.
Test. It kind of came on in 1 minute. I think it was in charge of something.
Yeah. All right. So what we want to do is that we want to increase the green, increase the health, and then reduce the damage. That's really, if you need to go now, this is the time to go. That's the whole lecture right now. In other words, what we're saying, just kidding. What we're saying is that we got to find out what helps your brain and embrace it. Find out what hurts your brain and avoid it. And then number 3 is that you want to ensure that certain blood parameters, certain numbers are kept within the normal range. Because we can all say that, yeah, I mean, you can be subjective all you want. I'm doing everything I know to do, but the numbers will tell the story, right? So those are the 3 things. Say it with me. You got to know what helps you. Wait, let's start with this. What hurts your brain and avoid it. What helps your brain, embrace it. And number 3, know your numbers and hold your doctor tight, okay? All right, so why does this happen? Obviously, as I said earlier, as you grow older, you're basically being exposed more and more to assaults and damage over a period of time. So this is like a timeline from 0 conception to about 100 years of life. The truth is, before conception, there's some influences even on you, but that's another story for another time. 25 years, full brain development. That's when the part of the brain that has to do with judgment, with planning, with execution, with impulse control, that's when it develops fully. That's the part that makes us fully human, that most separates us from the beasts of the field. So after 25, it's all downhill from there.
Well, that's a lot of good news, Doc.
I'm just kidding. I gotta keep it real, guys. But okay, but the truth is, you kind of like things stabilize and they keep to about your 40s, and then that's when, how shall we put it? The natural forces begin to abate. Menopause is one of the big problems, especially where women are concerned, because estrogen is one of the great protectors of the brain. Probably one of the most powerful protectors of the brain. And for some women, there's a significant drop in estrogen, and therefore a significant drop in the protection that your brain is experiencing. All right, and that's one of the reasons why women have it twice as bad as men. Not the only reason. The other reason, I give a whole talk on that. And then, of course, anything before 65 is early onset dementia. Anything after 65 is dementia. So when they say early onset, remember Pat Summitt? She died, the great legendary coach from Tennessee. She died, I think, 59. So she had so anyway, that's what it is. By 80, 1 in 2 people would have, in the US, have dementia. The thing I want to point out about what is happening over time, what makes your brain more vulnerable, the thing that stands out to me, or stands out to most researchers, is something called brain energy. Say it with me.
Brain energy.
So one more time, some people are sleeping off of me.
Brain energy.
Thank you. The brain needs a lot of energy. How much? Well, 2% of the brain is 2% of your body's entire weight. It requires at least 20% of the energy. In fact, some people say as much as 25%. But why is this important? I'll tell you why. All right, I'm going to get to why in a minute, but let's start with this first. If your brain isn't having enough energy, there's things that can go wrong. And if everybody's honest here, we all know we've experienced these things before, right? Some of us a little more than others, but this is why it's important. For your brain to work, for you to understand what I'm saying, for you to remember to eat, to move your limbs, to sit down. Everything pretty much that your brain does is as a result of connecting one brain cell communicating with the other brain cell. It has to happen, and that connection is called a synapse. There are about 100 trillion synapses in the brain. I don't know who sat down to count that, but that's what they say. I'm not going to try and disprove or prove it right. But that's the brain, and it needs these things to happen. Now, this network, remember I said 20% of the energy goes to the brain? Well, of that 20% that goes to the brain, over 60% is used to maintain this network. All right? So I'm hoping you're beginning to connect the dots, but I will for you in a second. Okay? If you don't have enough energy in your brain, if your brain is suffering from a depletion, and as we said, the older you get, the less energy you have in your brain under normal circumstances. Now, there's a lot you can do to change that, but if your brain is not getting enough energy, it means that those connections will not be working like it should. Hence the term brain farts, glitches, wires crossing. Sometimes short-term memory is lost. Now with dementia, obviously it becomes more sustained over a period of time and becomes more, where it actually interferes with your regular life, and therefore you might need help But for the most part, a lot of people are suffering these things without really understanding why it's happening. And there's a list of different things that can happen as a result of poor or low energy supply. I'm not going to spend too much time here, but many of you can relate to some of the, I mean, when I say relate, I mean, you can understand what this means, right? Memory loss, because the memory part of the brain takes a lot of energy, and there are a lot of those synapses. Anywhere where you have a lot of very densely connected brain cells, it's using up a lot of energy. And the memory center is one of those places. Also the part of the brain that has to do with planning, judgments, impulse control, also requires a lot of synapses and therefore requires a lot of energy. And those, by the way, are the parts that are affected the most, first and foremost, when it comes to dementia, before the other problems begin to set in, like movement and control. But the parts that are most affected are the parts that require the most energy. Is that beginning to make sense? Mm-hmm. All right. So you hear things like asking, it's not just that they asked a question and they didn't remember what you said. It could be that they didn't remember they asked the question in the first place. Or it could be that they didn't even understand your answer. And so they're asking again. Or they're telling the same story over and over again. That sense of awareness is beginning to be lost because of the reason that I've just given. So a whole bunch of things. So what we know is that for people with dementia, that drop in energy level happens decades before the first symptom. Got it? Decades. Okay, I've said this already. So the question now is, what drains my brain's energy? That's a good question to ask, right? Yeah, I mean, it's not just because you're getting older, yes, but the mechanism, how does that translate to draining of energy? So what we did was that we decided to come up with what I refer to as dementia's dirty dozen. Okay? Now, who can tell me, can you see a pattern here anywhere? No, yes. Round of applause. You got it. Well, so yeah, they all start with letter I. I mean, some I had to finagle a little bit just to tweak and push to it to make sure it fit and all that. But does any of these stand out to you? I mean, take a look at this and just let me know just shout out which ones kind of jumps out at you.
Inactivity.
Inactivity, thank you. Insomnia affects women a lot worse than men do. Isolation affects men a lot worse than women. Inactivity, yes ma'am. Okay. Anybody else? Deborah.
Insults, what do you mean by insults?
Everybody asked that question. That's one of the ones I had to fix to try and make it an I. It's actually supposed to be toxins. But that would mess the whole picture up, wouldn't it?
Insult toxins.
What? Insult toxins.
Insult toxins.
Insult toxins. I mean, that's a compound word though. But anyway, so yeah, you're right. So so it has to do with toxins in the home, the air you breathe, toxins. I don't know if you noticed this, but there's a lot of toxins in our food. As soon as you process food, even the so-called organic food, some of them have toxins in them. So we are, like I said, we're being besieged by all kinds of toxins. So anyway, so those are all different things, and like I said, it affects different people. Blacks have their own list of vulnerabilities. White women have their own list of vulnerabilities. White men, and so on and so forth. So it's really important for us to have a tailored, targeted approach towards educating lay people, and I believe healthcare professionals as well, about these different things. Yes, ma'am?
Is dementia hereditary?
Yes, to some extent.
It is.
At most, the number is 5%. At most. So 95% of it. I'm sorry? 95% of it has a lot to do with your environment and your lifestyle. So lots of responsibility on us. That's why we need to teach and educate people. By the way, infections, I just want to say real quick, COVID-19, a huge number of there's been a spike in cases as a result of COVID-19, especially among those who had loss of smell.
Really?
Yes. Loss of smell.
Yes.
Yes, a lot of, believe it or not, the smell center of the brain is very important. It's very close to the memory center, and anyway, there's a long story there. Another thing you want to watch out for is your dentition. Gum disease, tooth decay, that can directly affect the brain and can lead to dementia if it's not well taken care of. Illnesses, I think a lot of us take this for granted, things like hypertension, high blood sugar, diabetes, and so on, which affects the black community a lot more than the white community. We tend to have hypertension seriously a lot greater than whites. Yes, sir.
What I expect to see up there, but it wouldn't be an eye, is circulation.
So, yes, sir, that would be under illnesses, so like cardiovascular disease, diabetes, hypertension, anything that has to do with circulation would be under, we would categorize that under cardiovascular disease. Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. So, it's important for you to know where you sit. By the way, we have I believe we have I will put this at the end. So there's a QR code. I wrote an ebook that kind of goes through each of those, so you can easily download and just read and share with your friends if you need to. All right, so back to this. This is what happens. There's an energy decline. So what else is affected when energy levels are low? I'm sorry? Mood, yes, absolutely. But there's also something called the amyloid plaques. Anybody heard of those? Okay, so the amyloid plaques are mostly related. This is what Alzheimer's disease is known for, amyloid plaque accumulation, right? But here's the thing. If energy levels in the brain are low, it's not going to be able to do a lot of things. We've mentioned a few of them already. But part of what the brain does, especially at night, is to clear itself or cleanse itself of toxins, including amyloid.
Is that the numbers that you want us to know? You said you should know your numbers.
Yes.
So
Are you
is it-
talking about,
Yes, ma'am.
are you talking, I'm sorry.
Let me understand what you said first.
You mentioned that we should know our numbers
Yes.
when it comes to brain vulnerabilities.
Correct.
What numbers should, and I guess we would get numbers from lab tests and doctors.
Yes.
Is that the number, the amyloid plaque number? that
No.
we should know? Okay.
No, well, I'm going to get into the numbers.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, your question about, I'm familiar with amyloidosis, and you're referring to amyloids which are produced in the liver?
Yes, so amyloid is also produced in the brain. So amyloidosis is another disease entirely.
I know, but tell me how the amyloids are related to the brain and energy.
Good question. So Alzheimer's disease is the definition of Alzheimer's disease, or the standard definition or the standard understanding of Alzheimer's disease is that amyloid certain proteins called amyloid appear in the brain over a period of time, and they multiply and they shut down the network, shut down those synapses we showed, and that's what leads to Alzheimer's disease. Okay? So the new theory, and again, I got to tell you, I'm saying this with a lot of fear and trembling because your doctor's probably going to say something different, but there's a lot of scientific backing behind what I'm going to say. The fact is, amyloid proteins appear for several different reasons, including not having a good night's sleep, including if you have an infection in the brain, or there's a threat, amyloid is produced. If there's heavy metal toxicity or any kind of pollution, there are more amyloid tissues or proteins are produced. As a matter of fact, amyloid is like a defensive protein that is produced in the brain to defend against certain toxins. Okay? As I mentioned, if sleep is affected, you're going to produce more amyloid. So if your energy levels are low, your brain energy levels are low, you are going to produce a lot more amyloid than someone whose brain energy levels are optimal. Yes, ma'am.
Can you spell that word, amyloid or whatever?
A-M-Y-L-O-I-D.
A-M-Y.
L-O-I-D.
Thank you.
So amyloid plaques, that's a key thing. I believe I have so there's a picture here. So the red things there are what are known as the plaques. And the theory is that the plaques are the ones appearing in the brain and they're damaging the network, and that's what's causing dementia. The truth is the complete opposite, according to research now. It's the amyloid plaques are as a result of a brain that is already compromised. So it's like the ambulance is not the one that caused the accident. It's the accident that caused the ambulance to show up. Does that make sense? Okay. And the current treatments are based on that. And I'm not going to say that they're not going to work well, but what happens? So over $30 billion since we've been focused on amyloid plaques have been spent on research and development to produce drugs that would remove the amyloid plaques. How much success? We're yet to see, but so far the batting average is pretty bad. So, I mean, I have a patient I spoke to today, and he's like, yeah, he's doing on Leqembi, which is the latest one. He's like, yeah, I'm feeling okay and all that, but when he left, his son and his mom were, and his wife were like, God, no. Because like, he forgot his son's name, and when they were having a meeting earlier on that week. So, I mean, the jury's out, but I mean, I'm not going to say anything against it. However, let's say it's perfect. Let's say it removes all the plaques. Now what? Removal of the plaques does not necessarily mean that the energy is going to be restored. Remember, we started at the beginning by saying that is the energy depletion. That is probably the number one, single most important thing when it comes to brain health. So if you just remove the plaques, what happens to the energy levels? Do the energy levels automatically come back? The answer is no. Of course not. How could it? The damage is already done. So just taking away the plaques, and as a matter of fact, there are some risk factors with taking away the plaques that are well documented. Brain bleed, brain swelling, who wants that? So those risk factors are there. So, and I'm saying, well, let's do everything. Let's address the energy levels. Let's also address, and I'm going to get to where, what we do in a minute. Yeah, so this is it. So our approach, and I remember, I had to get permission from our government to do what I'm doing because it's outside the box, but it's safe, and it has been proven to get results. I actually have a patient now who they send me videos. She was almost bedridden. She couldn't feed herself. She couldn't walk, obviously. She couldn't recognize anybody. And then the son calls me, and I get a whole bunch of stuff together. I use only nutrients. I do not use medications. I ship them to Nigeria. And within less than 2 weeks, the mother's walking around, feeding herself, and they showed me videos of her recognizing her grandkids and pointing to each one, and in the background, you have somebody who, the help is dancing, the nurse is dancing around because she's like, wow, this actually happened. To me, that happens all the time. It's not really a surprise because, like I said, we've dealt with thousands of kids and now adults. And the basic thing is this, it's not something special that we're doing. It's that we just figured out a way to help the brain heal itself, or to help the brain do what it's been wanting to do all along. And that is to survive, to repair itself, to heal itself. If you understand that, then there's a lot of good you can do for your brain. If you don't, we'll just be running around in circles, and that's what seems to be what's going on these days. And we can't keep waiting for a drug to come up because, like I said, this thing is exploding. So we need to start educating people like you about what you need to do on a daily basis. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly talk about what we do. And what we do is we attack it from all angles, all at once. Remember the movie, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once?
Yeah.
Nice movie, wasn't it? I didn't really like it all that much. I don't know why they gave the Oscar to Jamie Curtis, but I guess it was about time. She's done a good work. She's done many good movies. But anyway, that's the idea. To address the brain, you've got to address several things at once. You have to address the guts, the digestive system, circulation, very important. Toxins, if applied, address the hormones, especially in women. So we realized after years of working on practice and trial and error, we had to do everything together at once. I mean, slowly, obviously, I have to titrate it upwards as we go along, but that's the idea. Now, I've already talked about that. Yeah, this was the lady. Yeah, by the way, the lady I talked about, she had global cerebral cortical atrophy. You do not want to see the word atrophy next to your brain. That's the last thing you want to see, because that's like, most doctors would say that's the end. There's nothing, that's impossible to treat or impossible to reverse. We are finding out otherwise. All right, so that's the ebook defense. Let me just get on to, okay, this picture. This refers to the 3 categories of people who have twice the risk of dementia as the rest of the population. Veterans, blacks, and women. All right, and since I belong to 2 of those categories, I'm very, very concerned about it. And by the way, I'm referring to the fact that I'm a veteran and I'm black, okay? Just to be sure. Make sure we don't, clarification right there. So folks, the answer lies in you all knowing what, I know I've said this so many times, but I think it bears repetition. You all need to know what to do. And that's the whole theory, the whole premise of my talk. Think of your brain as a castle or fortress and a moat, and you see the moat around it, you see the walls, activities are going on within the 4 walls, economic, farming, agricultural, and of course reproductive. That's what keeps the community going. It needs to be defended. If we ensure that we're doing the right things, then the brain is going to be healthy because we're doing things that help. The reason why people get dementia, over a period of time, their brains have suffered greater attacks, they haven't had enough protection against those attacks, and number 3, they did not receive prompt treatment, prompt and appropriate treatments when things were going wrong. Okay? So you want to reverse that by reducing the attacks, and that's over there, increasing the defenses, and so on. The one thing I want to point out, and there's a whole bunch of different things that can be attacks. Like I said, you want to look at the dementia's dirty dozen because that contains all the things that can be an attack on your brain. But I want to point to the one that stands out the most to me, and the most obvious is sugar. And I know I'm going to get in trouble now. I know it. But please bear with me. Your body, your body is comfortable with, the bloodstream is comfortable with, is a teaspoon of sugar. So once you have a meal, maybe it's a pasta, rice, whatever. That could be 20 teaspoons or whatever. What it's going to do is going to work overtime to drive it down to a teaspoon. And then next time you have a meal, same thing, process repeats itself. That is what is healthy for your brain. Now if you start panel beating and pile driving food into your body, what's going to happen? It's going to be hard to keep it at that level. And the blood sugar levels are going to begin to rise. When blood sugar levels rise, a lot of harm gets imposed to the brain, especially the memory centers, especially the parts of the brain that require the most energy. And so over a period of time, it acts as a toxin, as a weapon against your brain. That's why what you want to do is that you want to reduce your sugar. When I speak to the black community, I really emphasize it because I think we have a greater sweet tooth. And it's not just in the US, in Nigeria too. People just love sugar. So I always like, please guys, you gotta listen to me. I'm not giving you guys a pass either. You white people too have like sugar a lot too. Yes, ma'am.
Are you saying that the sugar is detrimental?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You actually don't need sugar. The one food that nobody needs is the carbohydrates. Most carbohydrates, most food, if it's glucose, you can convert fats and proteins to carbohydrates, to the carbohydrates you need. So people, you do not need sugar. And it's not just sugar, when you talk about cakes and all those things, they all have a lot of chemicals as well.
What about like trivia and stevia that are natural substitutes for sugar? How does that compare to?
They have their own problems as well because many of them have what is known as aspartame, which is a toxin it's a direct toxin to the brain. They proved that in the FDA, but they still approved it. But so I would advise against that. There's a new kid on the block called allulose. A-L-L-U-L-O-S-E. Allulose, fantastic. It's very healthy. Check it out. I think it's become commercially available. So allulose is a good one. All right, let's move on to the next one. And I'm saying this because there are also things you can do to mitigate or reduce the impact of the sugar, and that's what we're going to talk about now. So even if you cannot eliminate sugar, I'm not saying you should, but even if you cannot, there are things you can do to reduce the stink, and that is the Alzheimer's Association came out with a study that showed that you could reduce your risk of dementia by as much as 40% if you had a certain nutrient, or if your blood levels of a certain nutrient were optimal. Can anybody guess what that nutrient is? Anybody? Yes, ma'am.
Does continued depression affect the brain?
Yes, definitely.
Yes.
Definitely. So that's one of the illnesses so it would all be under mental health. So yes, because it produces a chemical that damages the brain. Does anybody know what that nutrient is? Anybody?
Vitamin D,
Look at you.
Oh.
Oh, look at you. You are absolutely right. Vitamin D level. You have enough vitamin D levels. It helps to protect against dementia by as much as 40%. That's just one nutrient out of thousands of nutrients. So could there be other nutrients maybe that could help to protect against dementia? I think there should. Yes, sir.
Vitamin D we're just talking about, does that include vitamin D3?
That's really the one we're talking about. Vitamin D3, yes.
Because my doctor put me on that a year ago.
It's a smart doctor. Many doctors don't even check. And unfortunately, yes, ma'am.
Is a good amount for people over 50 or 60 at 2,000 milligrams a day?
That's actually small as far as I'm concerned.
It's too small?
Yeah, I think it's too small. I give my patients much more than that. Yes, ma'am.
What about 50,000 every other week in a pill?
Every other week,
Well,
it's better you take it every day because it helps with sleep and other things. Ma'am?
50,000?
Well, I'm saying it's better you take vitamin D every day. But 50,000. So I got to be careful here because you are not my patients. But I'm just going to tell you what I do for my patients. Is that okay?
Sure.
All right. This is not medical advice. Okay? I don't accept anything less than 10,000. I take 20,000 myself.
Per day?
Every single day. It's better whatever you're taking, make sure you take it every single day. Yes, sir.
How does that equate to is it international units?
So yes, that's international units. Vitamin D3. Let's see. So numbers test. Okay. So this is the blood level. This comes in the U.S. We measure it by nanograms per deciliter. So the range you should have is 30 to 100. International units is the dose of the supplements that you put in your body.
Right.
Okay.
What would you recommend for D3?
I would not recommend anything to you. I'm just telling you what I do for my patients.
Okay.
And I gotta be careful here because I guess you understand. So I found
These guys
out.
are like 1,000 IUs a day.
To me, that's not enough. Let me explain to you why. If you go out, especially if you're a 25-year-old kid, It goes out, spends about 30 minutes to an hour in the sun. Do you know how much vitamin, they have to dress up in their shorts, right? You can't go out in the sun and be dressed like this and make vitamin D. It's not gonna happen. You gotta wear your shorts, exposed, and I understand cancer risk is there, skin cancer, for white people especially. But I'm just giving you an example. Your body will make 15,000 to 20,000 international units within 30 minutes of being out in the sun. So who's the genius that came up with 1,000 international units? Who's the genius? If your body can make or will make that amount, then where did you come up with the idea that it would be hurtful if you took anything more than 1,000? It makes no sense to me. And it really bothers me because we black people have the lowest amount, because this melanin is like a sunblock. And we have the lowest amount of vitamin D, and yet they still say we should be careful, take 800 international units a day and all that. It makes no sense to me, all right? I checked mine was like 83. And another thing that we're concerned about, I know time is almost gone and we'll have time for questions. But another thing that, what was I going to say? Golly, I was just concerned about
another D.
I'm sorry?
You need another D.
I need another D, yes. That's what you call a brain fart.
Yes.
They'll come back to me. Okay, so let's talk about tests. So just to answer your question, there are several tests that I recommend, about 7, all right? I might as well just give them to you. I don't have them here, or do I? All right, so I test for blood sugar levels. We've already talked about how that affects the brain, but there's another test that doctors, yes, I just remembered, that many doctors will not even test for vitamin D. It's almost like there's almost like I think there's a ruling that's been sent out and say that do not test patients for vitamin D.
It's a Medicare thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing, Medicare.
Medicare thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Why? Is it like for financial reasons or?
Medicare, they do that, they put the guidelines out there.
Yeah.
Is that recent?
No.
All my blood work gets vitamin D.
Yeah, so most doctors will not test it. And why? I was like, okay, so you know you gotta take vitamin. I just say take vitamin D. The downside is so much less if you have high levels of vitamin D as opposed to low levels of vitamin D. You could get killed. COVID-19 is a perfect example. Majority of the patients who died and who had severe forms of COVID-19 and who are still suffering from it today, guess what? Have low vitamin D. And yet, they come after you, people like me, they come after me when we talk about these things. So it's very important that you take care of yourself and make your own informed decisions yourself, okay? All right, so the other tests are vitamin, as mentioned sugar. You want to test your fasting insulin levels. You also want to test for vitamin D. You want to test for vitamin B12. It's very important for the brain. You also want to test for what is known as homocysteine. 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 It's like a sticky substance that damages the blood vessels in the brain. And then of course you want to check for your hormone levels. The sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and of course the thyroid hormone, which is the energy hormone. Okay? Those are some basic surrogates that would give you an idea about your overall metabolic health, but they'll also tell you how your brain is doing. Not everybody has access to PET scans or MRI scans, so this is a good surrogate for that. Okay, yes, we do have some corroborating research that I can use a QR code for if you want to step up after the class, and we can get into that. So to summarize, essentially what we're after is that brain health is brain energy. That's what it comes down to. You want to ensure We didn't talk too much about what to do to increase the brain energy, but we've talked about the things that you want to avoid that will drain your brain of energy. Brain energy talk probably is another talk entirely, but we do deal with that. But bottom line is that you want to ensure, you want to go from this to this. How about that? So with that said, we need your help. Please spread the word. This is something that, as Debbie said, this especially among the senior community. We want to get the word out and help people begin to make intelligent decisions about taking care of their brain and their overall body health. That's my information right there. Thank you so much for your time today.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Briefly, any daily activities you can recommend for people to do, like do Sudokus or crossword puzzles or read or anything you would recommend?
Yes, sir. So one of them is inactivity. If we're talking about specific ones, Sudoku definitely helps. Anything that has to do with calculations and having your brain having to work harder, what it does is that it helps to form more and more connections. And if there's one thing your brain needs is redundancy. It needs a lot of redundancy, a lot of different pathways that it can use. Should, in case one pathway doesn't work, it can mobilize and recruit another pathway. So things like exercise, doing things that you cross that have to do with both sides of the brain, where you're juggling is a big thing too. Writing with both hands, traveling, learning a new language, and so on and so forth. But I gotta tell you folks, those still pale in comparison to things like what you put in your mouth. The most important thing is avoiding certain things and now taking a lot of the right things. So we talk about vitamin D. There's a whole bunch of other things like vitamin B, the B complex. In fact, some researchers are saying you gotta use the brain. They call the B vitamins the brain vitamins. So people should be, in my opinion, people should be on vitamin B. There should be the whole B complex, but especially B12, very important. Vitamin D, even vitamin C that everybody is ridiculing these days. So not to go much further, but it's what you put in your mouth that will have the greatest impact on your brain's health. I'm saying this because I treat many professionals who are the top in their field, who use their brains intensely. If it was all about just having an active brain, they should not be having dementia, and yet they do. So you know it's not just that. So do everything you need to do to be active, but understand that there are some things that are weightier than that. Does that make sense? Any more questions? Yes, sir.
I have a hard time I can't do this. I really don't. I really don't. I try and I try and I try and I can't do what I need to do. Could I help? Could you help me from this?
From what do you need? What do you need me to do?
You got memory problems?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Are you asking to
Be a patient?
be a patient?
Yes.
Yes, we can. Like I said, I'm not practicing. I'm not licensed here.
Yeah.
So, but I do take patients, clients. Once we sign a lot of waivers and legal. When we get the legal stuff out of the way, I do take consultations and I do work with patients, but not as a medical doctor. More like consider me a consultant or a health coach, just to make sure that we cover all the bases. But yes, we can talk about that afterwards.
So you're welcome to write down his information or even afterwards stay and talk to Dr. David.
Yeah, we need that QR code.
Oh, yeah, sure.
That was fast.
Yeah, you
That was quick.
through. But I hope you all enjoy this.
It was great.
informative? All right. And if you do want to have a private consultation with Dr. David, write down his information and reach out to him. So he can be a consultant, but he's not licensed in the US, he is in Nigeria and other locales, but he's a research doctor that goes beyond what we're getting here. So you heard things today that you haven't heard before. So it's something that just incorporate into your lifestyle, but pass it down to your children and your grandchildren. The importance of what they put into their system affects their brain.
Want to get close?
I was gonna say, I'm supposed to be 98 soon,
Look at
Wow.
you, amazing.
Look at you.
but I was wondering if I could correct my mistakes.
Correct your mistakes. Doesn't look like you've made too many of
Yeah.
them. Wow, look at you. Amazing. Amazing.
Thank you.
Can y'all see the QR code?
Yeah, I'm not opening anything.
It's not coming open.
Scan the open page. It's not working?
Well, just take a picture of that.
Okay.
Then maybe you can use an iPhone. The real
It
phones.
is an
Yeah,
iPhone.
that's
But
odd.
I'll take a photo.
Yeah, okay, I'm just kidding. Wait.
It's good.
Didn't you have another one that was smaller? Maybe it's because it's just so big?
No, this is one of them. So I'm going to bring the other one up. So that was the research page. And then I'm going to bring in the Dementia's Dirty Dozen page.
Yeah, so secret among all us who want to have our memory.
Yes, sir.
So 20,000 IUs a day indeed.
I recommend, for my patients, I say 10,000.
Okay, good.
I take 20,000.
Okay.
Because I
Can
can't.
you overdose on that?
Yes, you can.
Oh, you
You can, but I gotta tell you, it's a lot.
I don't take one a day.
You only take one a day? You take one a day?
Yeah.
Well, that's great. I mean, I don't think you would be in any danger of overdose.
Okay.
Yeah. Many doctors recommend that once a week or once in 2 weeks. Doesn't work as well, in my opinion. And the research says that you gotta take it on it's more effective if you take it on a daily basis.
With breakfast?
What's that?
With breakfast?
With breakfast, yeah.
Full stomach or empty stomach? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
It doesn't really matter. I take mine at night because it helps with the sleep as well.
Oh.
So I would recommend you take it with, because it helps with sleep. Yes, sir. Yeah. I mean, like doses, yeah.
Have you heard of it? Yeah. Thank you all for your
Keep going.
That's great.
It's going to help you.
You're gonna have big problems there.
Thank you, Doc.
Yes, sir.
Great, great.
That sugar in it.
We were home there to my husband's job in 1965. You're an idiot.
That's not the kind of thing people commonly look for at all. No way! That's amazing. Hey, Julia, you need to look at your husband.
All right. Thank you for coming. Okay. Give me a call.
We'll be back for the concert.
Okay.
It's a different, this is different, it's a different kind of show.
Oh, it's a different.
Different kind of, so sorry to hear about you.
Oh, it's, Wednesday night.
Wednesday.
If the weather permitting, otherwise I'm down here. Anyways, I will reach out to you. Good to see you. Have fun to have
At every point.
Just think how much sugar we get in our diet.
We got too much.
Yeah.
We got too much, we got a lot.
Thank you, it's very lovely meeting.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Wish you well.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, I didn't know you were here.
Okay.